proceed?
Yes.
Please call Jared Tomich as our next witness.
Do you swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God? Yes. Thank you.
Spell your name for the court reporter, Mr. Tomich.
J-A-R-E-D, Tomich, T-O-M-I-C-H.
Sir, could you give us your full name, I think, just so we have that?
Sure. Jared James Tomich.
And what's your age?
38.
And your date of birth?
4/24/74.
And in what city do you live at the present time?
Sherville.
How are you affiliated with Fuel Fitness Center, Inc.?
The owner and operator.
How long have you operated Fuel Fitness Center?
We opened in the beginning of 2007.
Where is the Fuel Fitness Center where customer Bonnie Martin was hurt?
In Cedar Lake,
And what's the street address there?
12937 Wicker Avenue, Suite B.
Are there other Fuel Fitness locations?
Now there are, yes.
And how many are there?
We have 6 others now.
And that would be in Winfield, Creek, Crown Point, Sherrville, and Highland?
Yes.
So in what year did you first start operating the Cedar Lake Fuel Fitness?
2007.
Are Fuel Fitness Center services provided free of charge to anyone who walks in the door?
There's a membership fee.
And what is that fee?
Depends on the person's age, depends on their there's a few different things that depend on. The basic membership is $40 a month.
All right. And what's the most expensive membership?
The VIP membership, which is $55.
Is there a separate charge for accessing tanning-related services?
You can get it alone as a service, or you can add it to your membership.
What is it for getting a loan?
By itself,
Yes.
$19 a month.
And when you add it, what is it?
It goes from 40 to 55, and that includes everything in the sense of daycare, tanning, any of the services that we provide.
So would it be fair to say that in addition to tanning services, there's also weight training services?
Those are weight training services are separate as far as having a trainer with you.
Are there classes where you can train to work out in a
Yes.
certain way?
Yes.
Are those a separate fee for those
No,
classes?
those are included.
And general fitness training, is that also included, or is that a separate fee?
That's a separate fee.
Would you agree that the tanning beds and booths that you supplied at Fuel Fitness Center in Cedar Lake was one of the money-making components of the business?
It is correct.
Do you have tanning booths and beds at other Fuel Fitness locations?
We do.
Was this Cedar Lake the first location, the first place where you had tanning booths?
Yes, sir.
Would you agree as a business operator that a business should never make choices that needlessly endanger customers who come to their property?
Yes.
Would you also agree that a business ought to use care to protect the public from predictable and needless injuries?
Yes.
Were you present on March 26, 2009 when Bonnie was injured?
No, I was not.
Are you familiar with the incident?
Yes,
Did you have employees present at the time?
I did.
And Ruth Boldy was one of them?
Correct.
And another one was who?
Tiffany Repen?
Anyone else?
Not at that time. That were the 2 managers.
Was an incident report filled out by one of your employees?
Yes.
And who filled that out?
Tiffany?
Okay, you have number 10 in front of you in that exhibit book, File Exhibit 10. And if you would look at the first page of Trial Exhibit 10, number 8, it says, if anyone was injured, what was he or she doing at the time of the injury? And it's written, tanning in bed, stand up, slipped finger into fan. Do you agree with that?
Correct.
Now, if you turn to the next page of that exhibit, description of incident, it says Bonnie was tanning and reached for the handles located above her head, and her fingers slipped into the fan. Do you agree with that?
Yes.
Describe injuries, number 9, cut fingers and nails of her second and middle finger. Do you agree with that?
If that's what it says, I have not personally seen it. But
Okay. Now, up on the screen, we have from Exhibit 2-1, whatever is easiest for you to look at, whether it's in the book or on the screen. This first picture we have up here is 2-1, and it's page 1 of that group exhibit. Would you agree that this product was purchased used by you,
yes, I purchased it.
and that its manufacture date was October 12, 1995?
Correct.
Who would have cleaned up the room after Bonnie was injured?
I believe Tiffany did.
And do you know if there was blood or anything that was cleaned up?
I do not know.
Was it the customer's job to clean up between other customers?
There's supplies in there for them to do that, but we do that as well.
Do you know if first aid was supplied to Bonnie in any way after she was hurt?
I do not know.
Bonnie was definitely a paying customer at the time, wasn't she?
Yes.
And she was on the property with permission and invited to use the tanning booth, correct?
Correct.
And she was fully paid up to access that equipment, wasn't she?
Yes.
Now, if you would turn to the Exhibit 11 in your booklet, Trial Exhibit 11, is that a membership form that you require people to sign before they can use a tanning booth?
Correct.
Now, you would agree, wouldn't you, that the second from the bottom paragraph says, precautions are necessary for safe tanning. I agree that I will comply with all instructions on the use of UVA tanning system, and I am using these services at my own risk. Protective eyewear is necessary and highly recommended and should be the responsibility of the client. Do you agree with that statement?
I do.
Did you supply protective eyewear at your company?
We sell it at the counter, yes.
And approximately what's the cost for that protective eyewear?
We have a few different ones, a few dollars to some of them that are just 50 cents.
Now, that protective eyewear, is it kind of like a sunglass? You know, if you dark sunglasses, or how would you describe it?
So, some of them are, but they're cheaper.
But it's geared to protect your eyes from the UV ray.
Correct.
And it's recommended that when anybody gets into the tanning booth, they have that eye protection on, correct?
We do, yes.
Would you agree there's no warning in this membership form at all about any danger of an inadequately protected fan at the top of the tanning booth, is it?
No, there's not.
And you never, in fact, warned anyone about a danger associated with the fan before Bonnie was hurt, did you?
No.
If Bonnie in fact bought her goggles from your service or your company, they would be the prescribed type of goggles that you would expect your people, customers to use, wouldn't it?
Yes.
How many tanning beds and booths did you have at your facility in 2009 when Bonnie was used?
3.
And were 2 of them stand up and 1 lay down?
Correct.
Were they all used?
Yes, when I purchased them.
Can you explain the difference in the cost from a used tanning booth from a brand new tanning booth?
In dollars?
Yeah.
Depending on the booth and what you're getting, and tanning booths run anywhere from brand new, anywhere from $15,000 to $50,000.
And used would be about half that price?
Yes.
Where did these tanning booths that you had that were used and of the type that Bonnie was injured in, where did you purchase them from?
They were at a health club in Maryville called Flex Fitness is where I bought them from.
And they were going out of business?
That club did, correct.
You did not personally inspect those beds before you purchased them, did you?
Before I paid for them?
Right.
Yes, I went and looked at them.
So you looked at them, did you ask if anybody had been hurt in either of those beds?
I don't recall if I specifically did.
All right. I would like you to look at the second photograph in part of Exhibit 2-1 in the booklet. And we have the same thing on the screen. Would you agree, sir, if you look at the screen, that what we show here is a fan that's being covered by the grate is at the top of both of the 2 upright booths at the time?
Correct.
And we're looking at this, the photograph is kind of from the side on near the top, is that fair to say?
Yes.
When you would be in the tanning booth, you'd be directly underneath the center of the fan leading up, correct?
Correct.
Now if you look at the next page, Exhibit 2-1, page 3, this is a kind of still image of the upright tanning booth, correct?
Correct.
The bulbs that we see along the sides, that's for the UV light that provides the tan.
Yes.
And do those bulbs get hot?
They do.
And those bulbs have electricity supplied to them, correct?
Correct.
Is the electricity wires all guarded and kept away from people touching electric wires?
Yes.
And that makes sense to guard people from electric wires, doesn't it?
Yes.
Now if you look at the 4th page of Exhibit 2-1, it's another view of the fan at the top of the tanning booth, correct?
Yes.
And the next page, Exhibit 5, we have a ruler measuring across there. Before you allowed customers to use this particular tanning booth, did you measure the fan grate?
No, I didn't.
Did you advise customers to measure the fan grate and the dimensions of the grate before they used the fan?
No.
Now, would you agree that the rings that are concentric around the fan grate, if you start in the very center, they're much closer together in the center and they have greater and greater gaps as you go all the way out to the edge. Is that fair to say?
Yes.
Now, if you look at the 6th page, up near the very top of the fan, it measures approximately a ½ inch or more in terms of the opening. Is that fair to say?
Looks to me.
Okay. When you first purchased this, you had an opportunity to take measurements like this, didn't you?
Sure.
You didn't do it, did you?
No.
Did you ever ask customers to measure the fan grates before they could use the tanning booth?
I did not.
Let's skip down to the 9th photograph in 2-1. Now, in this we can see the edge of the handles in the tanning booth, correct?
Correct.
How is the grate around the tanning, or around the fan at the top of the tanning booth fastened? Is it little screws that are holding it in?
With steel fasteners? Correct.
Before you put these fans at this tanning booth into service, did you ever remove that grate?
For cleaning? Yes.
So you had removed it, cleaned it, put it back up?
Correct.
So unlike the customer, you had very close contact with the fan, moving it and putting it back up and seeing exactly how it was positioned
Yes.
and seeing the gaps in it at the top, correct?
Correct.
Now, the next item, photo 10 in the group exhibit 2-1. Did these handles that we see in this at the top, did they come with that handle, or did you put that in?
No, those were, they came with handles, we just put different ones in over time.
Over time, you just, whatever you found handy, you would put into the handle?
No, you had to find aluminum ones so that they wouldn't get hot in the bed. So it was kind of difficult to find decent handles for them.
So you worked on trying to get a handle that was aluminum, correct?
Mhm.
Is that a yes?
Yes, I'm sorry.
Did you ever contact the manufacturer and ask for the very type of handles that it was originally sold with?
I don't believe so.
Now, if you look at the next photograph, which is number 11, under 2-1, you would agree, sir, that the handles on both sides of the fan are of a different type, correct?
Yes.
And they're at different proximity to the fan as well, aren't they?
Without measuring it, but I mean, they look close.
Well, some of these we do have measured. Let's see. All right, if you go to 13, 2-1, 13. See if I can get that on the screen here. All right. This one shows of the, if you're looking into the booth, which would be on the right-hand side, over about 2 1/4 inches from the top. Do you see that?
Yes.
And if we go to the opposite side, which should be number 15, it's about 1.5 inches down from the ceiling. Is that fair to say?
Too close.
All right. So that's an inch discrepancy between the right and the left in terms of distance from the ceiling, correct?
just about that.
Okay. Now, if you look at number 17, is again looking at the one on the left-hand side, it's about 3 inches to the edge of the fan guard from the handle. Is that fair to say?
Yes.
And if you look at the opposite side, which is number 19, excuse me, number 20, this is I think the display in the book is shows it almost 2 inches from the edge of the fan grate to the side of the handhold, correct? I don't think the screen is displaying exactly the one same in the book. If you look at number 19 in the book, and number 20 in the book, and forget the screen for a minute, it's about 2 inches on that side, right?
Well, they actually look really, if you count the rungs on the fan, they look like they're both at, if you go to count five rings in, they're both at about 3 inches, it looks like.
Now, the tanning beds get hot, correct?
Yes.
And that fan is located in there in order to provide some ventilation, correct?
Yes, sir.
Do the bulbs themselves give off any kind of sound?
No, not that I'm aware of.
Is the fan blade itself made of metal?
I believe so, yes.
When customers were cleared to use the tanning beds after signing the acknowledgement that they would need to wear goggles, and were they given any instructions about the grab handles or how to grab onto the handles in proximity to the fan?
They were just shown where the handles were.
Were they warned about any aspect of the fan at all in March of '09 before they would be allowed to use the booth?
Not that I know of.
Were they warned that bulbs might be hot to the touch?
Not that I know of.
Did you notice at the time of purchasing and installing the grab handles that they were unevenly spaced when you put them in?
I just replaced them where they were when I got the tanning bed.
You agree they weren't handles that came originally with the machine. They didn't appear to be, correct?
Correct.
Would it have been feasible to have made the fan grate less of a danger to customers by putting a wire mesh inside of the fan grate?
Yes.
When you took them off to clean prior to Bonnie being hurt, did you give any consideration to putting a wire mesh inside of that fan grate?
No, not before then.
Did you give any consideration to warning customers about the dangers associated with the gapping at the top of that fan grate?
No, I did not.
Was there anything that prevented you at Field Fitness from installing a new grate with bars that were closer together, or having inserted a mesh lining around the grates in case the fingers would slip off the handles or get close to the fan?
That was what came from the manufacturer.
Well, my question was, did you give consideration to putting in, was there anything preventing you from putting in mesh inside the grates, so that people's fingers couldn't slip through that gap. How much money do you believe it would cost you to install a safer lining, like a mesh inside of that grate?
I think it was about $100.
And how long would it have taken to install that?
2 hours.
Now, we have a video that I think your attorney tried to display earlier, and if I'm lucky, I can get it to play. We'll try. Let's see if we have volume adjustment.
Gerald Thomas. He's one of the owners or owner of Fuel Fitness. And also here with us is the attorney for Landon's case, Aaron Holla. We're here with the paralegal, and we're going to videotape the process of basically turning on the canning lights on the canning system.
All right, so you were present when this video was done, correct?
Yes, sir.
All right, so you're the same gentleman we see in the photo?
Yeah, that look on my face, yes.
Okay. Now, what is this in the corner behind you here?
It's a fan for the room.
Now, that fan for the room would normally be operational to try to circulate air in that room, correct?
To help out, yep.
Okay. And does that fan make a noise?
Yes.
And in each one of the tanning rooms, that fan would be normally on and operational and running during the day when people were using the tanning room, correct?
They have the option of turning it on.
So oftentimes it would just be left on, wouldn't it?
I have not seen it left on.
Okay. Now, in this particular video, I think you're going to be asked some questions about the tanning booth. First of all, have you seen this video since it was filmed?
No.
I don't think anybody asked you if you would be swearing under oath during that video, because you talked in that video. Would you agree? You answered some questions?
Yes.
If there's anything that you hear yourself say that is not accurate or truthful, like you're under oath today, would you let us know as we proceed?
Sure.
Okay.
And it's my understanding that we're in production room is one. Okay, so this would be tanning booth 1. And how many tanning vertical tanning booths do you have? 2 vertical and 1 And back at the time that the plaintiff was injured in that case, and the vertical ones, they're this
Yes.
Okay. Or she could, if she had chose or wanted to, take out, it's possible to shut the door and turn the cane lights on if the timer's on. Which means the dome light and the fan are on. And the dome light is, can you turn the timer on again? Jeff, can you get a shot of where the dome light is in there? Okay. Now, can you turn it off for a minute? In case you happen to be in the other can, the other version, you think she happened to be in the other one, would the controls have worked the same for everything that looks like?
Everything's the same. Yep.
I don't think I have any other questions. Do you have any questions, last week?
Sure. If you can tell me how the lights go on inside once you turn the, not the timer, yeah, the timer light. What do you call that light? The dome light? Yeah. Okay. Yep. That goes out and that goes. Right, well, the timer's set. But that can't go on or can the light come on and the timer will get first. And can people get a quick side thing that when you just do it whenever they want. And then part will be your eyes that the lights are on, the candy lights are on. And all the part 7 is on, it goes from now. You know, your eyes will get over periods of time for it. And the sound that you have in here, there's no music or anything that types in. No. Fan that we have in there is the fan time. And the reason the time. Correct. And the candles are the same as they were at the time. Correct. Are those candles the ones that share with this particular people? One is, I think one is one of your types of pieces for this is how I received unit, but I want when I look at the other unit, the other unit, generally further from the team. One handle here does one handle on that, close that deal. You know how that is set up? No, I don't know. The manufacturer or some of the that's inside that.
Now, if you would look at Exhibit 2-5, and I have the first page of 2-5 on the screen. Is that the timer switch that you were shown turning on and off in the video?
Yes.
And if you look at the next page, 2 of Exhibit 2-5, this is the other canning booth, correct? You had booth 1 and booth 2?
This is, I'm sorry, let's see here. Is it the one on the screen, or you're asking me?
On the screen, let me just click it here. Sure. Or is it the exact same one?
That's the one we were in.
Okay. So you can see there's one handle on one side, kind of on the left-hand side of the photograph. Looks quite a bit different than the handle on the right side of the photograph, correct?
Correct.
Now, this one has apparently wire mesh behind the grate. Is that fair to say?
Yes.
This is what you retrofitted or put in after Bonnie was hurt?
Correct.
And did you put that in every one of the fans after Bonnie was hurt?
In those 2 units?
In those 2 units?
Yes.
Now, did you put that in behind fans in the other stores?
No.
Is there any grate like that behind the fans in the other stores that you've rented?
No.
Is that because there are newer models supplied by the manufacturer that already have those grates in there?
No, we don't have grates like that in there. There's just it's a different setup in the newer models.
Different setup how?
Just as far as the initial grate on there.
Okay.
Not the.
There's not as much gap.
I didn't put a screen on the other one. So
in the newer models, there's not that gap that we see. That's like a half-inch gap in the grate, correct?
correct.
So it's just these 2 used ones that you had purchased that you have retrofitted with the mesh. Is that fair to say?
Correct.
And I think page 5 of Exhibit 2-5 gives us a closer-up view. That's where you can see the grate with the mesh at the top, correct?
Yes, sir.
Before you started allowing people to operate the tanning beds and tanning booths at your facility, did you undergo any kind of training where you went to a manufacturer or somehow got special training on what to do to operate those tanning beds?
No, just from the previous owners.
And you had no training from the maker of the tanning bed from Hex, correct?
Correct.
Do you agree with me, Mr. Tomich, that as of March 2009, that the circular bars guarding the fan at the time your customer was hurt had half-inch gaps in places near the fan right up against the ceiling of the booth, which would prevent fingers to get into the fan? Do you agree with me, Mr. Tomich, that as of March 2009, that the circular bars guarding the fan at the time your customer Bonnie was hurt had half-inch gaps in places near the fan, right up against the ceiling of the booth that would permit fingers to get into the fan?
Yes.
And do you agree with me, Mr. Tomich, that as of March 2009, with half-inch gaps in the circular bars or grates surrounding the fan at the time your customer was hurt, that it was not an effective guard capable of protecting a customer from getting their fingers into the fan?
Correct.
Would you agree that the majority of your customers who tan are women?
Yes, I think I don't know the exact number, but it's pretty mixed, I guess.
Would you agree that that women tend to have smaller hands than men in general?
Yes.
Would you agree with me that as of March 2009, you knew that the grab handles were not evenly spaced or centered around the fan?
No.
Are you telling us that they were evenly spaced and centered?
To the best of my knowledge, at that time, but I did not measure them.
Okay. Would you agree that the variance in the geometry and placement of the handles would confuse the customer reaching to find the handles because the handles would be in distinctly different places?
No.
You don't agree with that?
No.
Would you agree that a person acquiring a used tanning bed as of March of 2009, whether all the component parts are used or not, should evaluate the safety of the booth and fan before allowing customers to use it?
Yes.
Would you agree that a careful evaluation prior to March 2009 would have revealed the inadequate guard with the half-inch gaps near the top?
No.
It would not have revealed that?
No, when I took, when I had a unit, I never noticed that, that could happen.
Did you ever measure?
No.
Would you agree that the excessive gaps at the top of the guide, top of the guard around the fan are not visible to someone who is straight underneath the fan and looking up? If you're down straight in there and looking directly up overhead, but you're not going to see the top next to the ceiling?
Depending on your height, I guess that would kind of depend.
Okay. And women are generally a little bit shorter in stature than men, correct?
Typically.
Before you put this booth into service, a 14-year-old booth, did you actually go in it and look in it and see how much light you would get inside the tanning booth?
Yes, I've used it many times.
Did you ever supply to any of your customers a step stool to stand on, or so that they could get up close to the top of the booth and look at the way the fan was guarded?
I was never asked.
Did you ever provide to your customers a ruler to get up to the top of the fan and measure and look at the gaps in the guide around the fan?
Never been asked.
Did you ever supply that?
If they would ask,
Well, you're telling us if, but did you ever supply it, whether anyone asked or not asked?
we have step stools, we have a ruler if they would like to do that.
Did you ever, before March 2009, get into the 14-year-old tanner booth with goggles on for purposes of tanning?
Yes.
Because goggles is something that would be required, correct?
Correct.
And those goggles, whether they're supplied by you or just generally commercially available, decrease your vision in the sense that they are darkened like sunglasses. Is that fair to say? Would you agree that Ruth Boldy was an employee of Fuel Fitness at the time of this incident?
Yes.
And would you agree that at the time of this particular incident, she had no more training than you did on how to instruct people to safely use the tanning booth?
Correct.
All right, sir, I'd like you to look at Exhibit 10. That should be in your book. On the first page of Exhibit 10, it shows date and time incident reported. Do you see that?
Yes.
March 26, 2009 at 1:10 p.m. is when the incident report was created.
Yes.
And if we flip to the fourth page, it is signed by Tiffany Reppin, that was your manager at the time.
Yes, sir.
And if you slip to number 7, question 17 on page 3, where it says corrective action taken to prevent a similar incident, do you see that?
Correct.
It says replace existing fan guard with a better guard. Is that what Tiffany wrote in there?
Yes.
And she wrote that within 10 minutes of Mrs. Martin being injured, correct?
I don't know when she wrote this as far as the time frame.
But we know that the incident report was prepared at 1:10 and the incident happened at 1 p.m., correct?
Yes, underneath it, there you go.
So did Tiffany Reppin tell you that this had to have a new, replace the fan guard with a better guard?
I don't remember at the time.
Is it your recollection that you on your own decided to replace the fan guard, or that Tiffany Reppin told you to replace the fan guard?
I don't recall if I had a conversation with her before we did this or not.
I'll pass the link.
Regardless of whether you had a conversation with Tiffany about that or not, you made the change within a couple days, right?
Yes, sir.
The Martins, both Miss Martin, sitting here, and her husband were some of your first customers, weren't they?
Correct.
And her son, Ben, worked for you too.
Yes.
And if you thought there was anything at all dangerous about that fan, you would have told me.
Correct.
Now, you said you started in 07. It was January 07, is that right?
Yes.
And so this happened in March of 09. So in that period, others had used this vertical tanning bed?
Yes.
And the other vertical tanning bed?
Yes.
Been used quite often?
Very.
Hundreds of people?
Yes.
Maybe even 1,000?
As far as that many times, sure.
Yeah, right, not
Sure.
different people, but many times used.
Yes.
Any complaints about the tanning bed?
Never.
Any kind of injuries to the tanning bed?
None.
If you had known of any kind of injury or danger that someone could not detect and keep their hands away from, would you have fixed it?
Yes.
Okay. Now, you had customers were directed to use eye protection, is that right?
Correct.
But they could use their own.
Oh, yeah.
And some customers, like Ms. Martin, bought and brought their own, is that right?
Correct.
But the kind of eye protection that you sold at Fuel Fitness back at that time was such that when the tanning lights were on, you could see through it.
Correct.
And if the tanning lights were on, even with the eye protection on, you, if you looked, would be able to see where the handles were.
Yes.
And you'd be able to avoid putting your finger through the fan grill.
Correct.
no other injuries with this type of vertical tanning roof at your place. Before this happened, had you ever heard of this type of injury happening at any other tanning place?
No.
Now, besides the tanning booths, you've got weight equipment there,
Yes.
and you've got cardiovascular equipment there.
Correct.
What other types of equipment do you have? Stairmaster,
Treadmills, ellipticals, stairmasters,
free weights?
free weights, probably 40 different machines.
Daycare,
Yes.
and then you get classes too.
Correct.
And people that wanted to tan a lot, they would have the option of buying a membership that gave them unlimited tanning ability
Correct.
without having to pay anything extra over the additional package.
Correct.
So, in essence, it would be cheaper to buy the package if you're red tan one.
Yes.
Listen, would you get one to the place? This one. Now, have you over the years had different kind of computer systems at Fuel Fitness?
Only two.
Back at the time that Miss Martin was a member, did you have a system? I'm going to show you what's been marked as Defendant's Exhibit A. You see that?
Yes.
Now, is that particular, what is it?
It's a check-in history from our point of sale system on each member.
Does that tell us how many times, according to your records, that she used the tanning booths?
No, this is for just, she was there at the club that day.
Okay. And would there be any additional record or separate record for someone who used the tanning booth who had unlimited access to the tanning booth?
No.
Okay. So, if you look at this record, will this record then show the times that she checked in to Fuel Fitness?
Yes.
Now, you bought Fuel Fitness from a different club?
No, I created it.
Great.
Yes.
Okay. Well, we started out in August of 08 and ended up in January of 11. But she was hurt in March of 09. Is that right?
Yes, sir. Yep.
So would that indicate that she continued to come to the club after she was injured?
Yes.
And if she was injured, March 26, 09. Can you count the times according to your records, that shows that you came back to the club after that date?
Sure. If I counted them right.
And she would come back to the club, would you ever talk to her?
Yes.
More often than once?
Yes.
A lot?
When I would just see her in passing through the club?
More than two?
Yes.
Okay. Ever asked her how she's doing?
Yes.
What would she say when we asked her how she's doing?
She would say she's fine. She was doing okay.
Did she ever mention to you, say to you, those times that she came back to the club, you know, it really wasn't right having that fan the way it was. That was dangerous.
No.
We move to the admission today.
Any objections?
No.
Copies for each juror.
It is admitted.
Begin the floor. That's me.
Okay, thank you.
Now, when you did buy this equipment used,
Yes.
as we admitted, did you have it checked out by anyone?
The company from Valparaiso.
And why did you have them check it out?
Because I needed to buy bulbs and things like that for it.
What is your understanding of what you did?
Came through and looked at the general condition of the bed, and then looked to see if there was any, or made the recommendation of which bulbs I needed to use, and then to replace a few little sockets is what commonly kind of goes out in the general maintenance of the club. So it was his recommendation on just what sockets for me to use and which bulbs for me to use.
You redirect.
Mr. Tomich, I believe you said that on at least a couple of occasions before Bonnie was hurt, you removed the grate from the top of the fan for cleaning purposes.
For the general maintenance purposes?
Right. And so you would actually clean the fan blades, I presume?
Yes, and there was a motor above it.
And you would clean the grate itself before you put it back out?
Correct.
So you were very familiar with the dimensions of the grate, the size of the grate, the gaps in the grate. You were all familiar with all of that?
Correct.
And you were so familiar with it that it would take you just a few minutes to take it off and clean it and then put it back up, correct?
Correct.
Would you agree, sir, that to operate the bulbs and provide light in that particular canning booth that there had to be electricity, correct?
Yes, sir.
I imagine your electric bill is probably pretty high when those things are running and all those bulbs are lit.
They're not too bad, actually.
Okay.
It's
Now, do you draw electricity?
Yes, sir.
And would you agree that your customer has a right to assume that there would be no bare wires that would cause her to get electrocuted if she touched any part inside that booth?
Yes, sir.
Are you telling this jury that your customer does not have the right to assume in getting in that booth that the fan would be properly guarded and would not cause any harm?
Can you rephrase that? I didn't,
Well, you just told us that a customer getting in would have a right to assume that they wouldn't get electrocuted in that fan,
Correct.
in that booth by touching it.
correct.
Are you telling this jury that they don't have the right to assume that they would be safe if they got anywhere near that fan, that they would be safe from getting hurt?
To the best of my knowledge, that I thought they would be safe.
Well, the customer had a right to assume that they would be safe, correct?
Sure.
And unlike you taking down the fan covers and cleaning the fans and putting the fan covers back up, customers had no obligation to clean fans, take them down, put it back up, did they?
No.
That's all.
Jared, customers having the right to assume that they wouldn't get hurt. Can you guarantee every single person that walks into your club that they won't get hurt?
No.
If someone sticks their finger between the weights on the weight machine and the weights come down, it's going to crush your finger, isn't it?
Yes, sir.
There's certain things that customers have to watch out for, don't they?
Correct.
And again, getting back to what you knew, not what you might have known or could have guessed. As far as you knew, if you had known that this was dangerous, you would have told her or you would have changed it.
Yes.
And that's exactly what you did just after this happened.
Correct.
Because even if it was her own carelessness, you don't want it to happen anyway.
Correct.
Yeah, we redirect.
Are you telling this jury if Bonnie had not gotten hurt, that those fans would still be covered with the same grate that they were covered with at the time Bonnie was hurt without any mesh being applied to it?
Yes, sir.
That's all.
Anything else, Counsel?
No, Your Honor.
All right. Ladies and gentlemen, if you have any questions, now's the time to write them down. And put them in the basket and hand it to the bailiff.